Hello, Collateral Gaming listeners. Chazzle Dazzle here from the Trial by Air Variety Show podcast. I just wanted to take a few seconds to invite you guys over to what we do. No, it's not video games, but we do invite really awesome and unique bands from all over the world. We dig deep into their souls and find really cool stories to tell you, and there's tons of music every week, so subscribe to us wherever you subscribe to your podcast. We look forward to having you.
I'm Ashley Chancellor.
And I'm Zachary Gio.
And this is Collateral Gaming Season 4. Welcome to Collateral Gaming, the only video game podcast that matters, where we focus on good games, bad games, and everything else in between in the world of gaming. We are podcasting straight from somewhere in South Texas, and yes, my friends, we are a 420-friendly podcast. So whatever you have, smoke it if you've got it.
I've got a vape.
He's got a vape. And, ladies and gentlemen, this is our season premiere. We are so excited to talk about a whole slew of games this season. Yeah.
Dude, oh my gosh. And let's just talk about this season premiere that we've got for you guys today. Like, this is going to be a banger of a listen. I myself have played this game twice within the past 5 days and beaten it 100%, which is kind of sad for people that don't play video games, but it's brilliant to us because it's an amazing experience, and we cannot wait to talk about it with you. Just kidding, with each other.
with each other and with you and your mom. And yeah. So, before we get into it, though, we definitely have to start off our Collateral Gaming Season 4 with Collateral Gaming news.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. For one thing, I know that the Switch OLED model finally came out. So
yeah,
that's pretty cool. I don't think that it had been out by the last time we recorded, so.
No, it actually came out. It launched last Friday with Metroid Dread, which is really cool. But honestly, the OLED model is only good if you play portable a lot. If you dock it, it's pretty much the exact same experience. There's not much of a difference there at all. But if you like to take your Switch on the go, the OLED model is the way to go. I've seen it. It's really, really nice. It's got a really extended kickstand on the back instead of that one little sliver that the original Switch had. It has a brighter, more vibrant screen. Obviously, the OLED screen does that. And it's like, what, an inch wider?
Yeah, I believe so.
Totally worth an additional $350. Shout out to you, Nintendo. Way to go.
I mean, if you already have a Switch, I don't know if it's worth it. But if you're in the market for one, or in my case, I have a Switch Lite, and I was going to buy a new Switch anyway. I think I'll get the best that they have that's out.
Absolutely.
Although it's a little disappointing we didn't get the Switch Pro that we were wanting with 4K and whatnot. This is still a step up, and I'm happy to see that Nintendo did something with the hardware, because for a while they were saying that they weren't going to release anything, I think.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. The Switch Pro was really started out as a rumor. It was nothing Nintendo really ever talked about. It was just the fans saying, hey, we want a Switch Pro, we want some better plan, blah, blah. No, it was never really confirmed for anything, and so the OLED is a blessing to the community, Nintendo is usually very sparse in the way that they, release content and the way they release systems and updates and stuff like that, and so to get this is a blessing, It's really cool that Nintendo actually stepped up and updated the hardware even a little bit, and honestly, with the title that they released it with, there's no better time to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you have any contribution to our news segment?
Actually, I mean, Yes, I did. It was just one game that came out on October 12th, actually, which was yesterday. Back for Blood came out, made by the same company that released, the Left 4 Dead series. I don't know the name of the company because I actually haven't started playing Back for Blood yet. I've got it downloaded on my PC, but I'm excited to dive into it. I've been playing so much Dread these past 5 days, dude. I can't focus on anything else, but now I'm about to start getting back into Call of Duty, and I'll start playing Back for Blood. Hopefully with friends.
Is it Back 4 Blood, just like Left 4 Dead?
Yep.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. And I cannot wait to get into it. I love zombies. I love shooting and killing zombies. I love watching zombie-related movies. World War Z was actually a phenomenal game that came out a while back. It was based off of the movie, but not really. It was just, I guess the story followed just 4 random people that were a part of the apocalypse. But I love zombie stuff. I'm a huge fan of The Walking Dead. And also, in the way of news... Just kidding. I don't have anything else. What about you, Ash?
That's about it, I think. I kind of looked at it, I did a search engine search, and I couldn't find anything really worth mentioning.
Oh, I actually do have some more news. It's been a while since you and I have sat down to record, but Call of Duty Vanguard comes out on November 5th, I believe. And let me tell you, I played the beta pretty extensively, and that game is phenomenal. It feels like a return to the original Call of Duty format, which is something we've desperately needed since, Call of Duty Ghosts came out. When that game came out, the series kind of took a turn for the worse, sorry, I can't speak, which is a normal thing here on Collateral Gaming, my inability to speak on a podcast. But nonetheless, that game comes out on November 5th, and it is a return to old World War II style fighting, and I actually love it. The gameplay is smooth and crisp. The lobbies are awesome. With the past few Call of Duties, I believe it started with Modern Warfare, they added something called skill-based matchmaking, which basically puts you in lobbies with players of a similar or greater skill level, and an emphasis on greater, because usually you get in lobbies with kids that are trying so hard, it's like they took their PC or their console to the gym with them, and they are sweating their life away. And so with Vanguard, they implemented a system of separating the lobbies into different categories. Like you have tactical, assault, and blitz. Tactical is 6v6. Assault is 8v8. And blitz is 10v10. So if you're looking for more intense, sweaty gameplay, like high speed, fast-paced action, blitz is the game mode for you. If you're kind of in the middle, play assault. It's 8v8. It's not as bad, but it's still intense. And if you want that old classic Call of Duty style feel, tactical is the way to go. And also, they're kind of throwing a little bit of Battlefield in there too with these 24v24 lobbies on 6v6 maps.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, about Battlefield 2042 comes out very soon. The beta actually just recently released, and it's pretty dope. Not gonna lie. I've been thoroughly enjoying my PC just, messing around with these games. And honestly, the future for shooters is looking very, very bright. And I'm a huge fan of those, so it's really exciting.
Fuck yeah. Alrighty. Well, yeah, we had a lot more to talk about there than I thought we did, so that's cool. But without further ado, I'd love to talk about the game that we're here for. The game that we've been waiting months for since its announcement at was it at E3? I believe so.
Ash, you just had the most beautiful Freudian slip, man. You said the game that we have been mating months for. Yes, they did announce Metroid Dread at E3, and boy, let me tell you, this game is a banger. Ash and I both started playing it on Friday, the day it came out, and let me tell you, this is easily, and I know, Ash, you'll agree with me on this when I say this is the best 2D Metroidvania style game that has ever been released.
I wholeheartedly agree.
It is phenomenal. I have zero complaints about the game. It is just spectacular, and I'm sure we'll get into some of the more gritty details later on, but if you have not played, if you're a fan of Metroid, which hopefully you are, if you're not, then that's cool. You can expose yourself to a really awesome series with a great storyline that, as now with the release of this game, has expanded, 25 years? 1986 was when Metroid originally released for the Nintendo Entertainment System. And with Metroid Dread, finally, this story that we have waited years for a conclusion to, since Metroid Fusion's release in 2002, we have finally gotten the finale to this storyline. And let me tell you, it exceeds all expectations. It does not disappoint. It is spectacular.
Dude, fuck yeah. It really is. And Metroid Dread actually has quite a bit of a troubled development history.
Yes,
this
it
game
does.
was in development hell for quite some time, and then I think at one point it was just officially canceled and wasn't going to be a thing. And for a while, we really didn't get any new Metroid games up until Samus Returns came out. And I think when Samus Returns came, that's when Sakamoto decided that the technology was available to make the Metroid Dread game that he originally wanted. But
Oh, dude, yes.
originally, Sakamoto had conceived this as a DS game. It always was intended to be the sequel to Metroid Fusion. It was going to be the latest game chronologically, which it now is. And obviously the idea of Dread was the fact that Samus was going to go to this unknown planet. Just kind of picking up on the story from Fusion. Of course, we know that Samus had been injected with Metroid DNA in order to cure her of the X parasite, destroyed SR-388 at the end of Metroid Fusion, eliminating the X. The Metroids had already been extincted as of Metroid 2 / Super Metroid with the death of the baby. And then I guess Fusion had some like additional Metroids that the Federation were creating. But anyway, Metroids and X are both gone. And I think that was always the backdrop that Dread was planned to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And to be honest, even though it did kind of suck that the game went into development hell and got canceled, I'm really glad that it happened now instead of then, because the Switch is the perfect console for this game. The Dread experience, emphasis on the word dread. Like, let me tell you, there are some parts in this game that will make you shudder. Like, you are constantly trying not to get taken out. And this is honestly the first Metroid title where they take Samus. Yes, she's a badass intergalactic bounty hunter, but it makes, like, Fusion and Dread now, especially Dread, have done a good job of letting you know that, yes, while Samus is extremely talented with what she does, she is susceptible to fear and pain, and if you slip up, death. And this game really does a good job of putting you in a sense of dread, making you wonder, okay, how am I going to do this? Am I going to make it through this? And there are some parts where if you get stuck, there is very little chance of escape. And
yeah,
we'll dig into that later. We're trying not to spoil anything right now. This is part 1. We're going to talk about the game, and if you stick around for part 2, that's where we're going to dive into the story and like some of the abilities and stuff that you get, and that's where we'll dive into the spoilers and stuff. But right now, take it from both of us, this game is incredible. It was perfectly executed, and the time spent planning it is time that I will never regret losing, because this game blew my mind. I mean, dude, the game's been out for 5 days, and I've 100% completed it twice. Once on normal mode and once on hard mode, and I had a blast both times. I'm probably not going to go through it again for a little while, just because I want to kind of keep it fresh, but I am eventually going to try to go for, faster runs. I'm going to try to do it, and see if there's any, rewards for doing that, because one thing this game definitely rewards is the ability to keep up with the pacing. 100%. Yeah. I mean, this isn't much of a spoiler, but with this game, Samus is quick. She's super quick.
Faster,
you can move very, very
faster than she's been in any Metroid game, in fact.
Oh, absolutely. And it adds to the fluidity and the smoothness of the game. It makes for intense, quick, and extremely well-paced gameplay.
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting that this game was originally started development in 2005. And they tried again in 08, both times on the DS, but evidently the limited hardware was just not enough for Sakamoto to illustrate the dread they really wanted to do.
I'm telling you, the Switch was perfect for this. With everything that they implemented in this game, the enemies, the main parts of the storyline, you needed this hardware. The Switch was literally begging for this game to happen. And it did. Sakamoto's dream was finally envisioned, and it did not disappoint. It exceeded expectations far beyond anything I could have ever dreamed. We freaked out back in, was it June? Yeah, we freaked out back in June when they announced this game. And when the trailer said October 8th, fans everywhere were just losing their minds. Not only did Samus look amazing, the fusion suit is just or the dread suit. I guess we'll call it the dread suit in this game. It looks spectacular. It looks like a further evolved form of the fusion suit, which is one of my favorite. Well, now the dread suit's my favorite, but the fusion suit was my favorite in the entire series. Every time I played through Metroid Prime, I made sure I had the fusion suit.
Well, and the fusion suit was quite a bit different than Samus's regular power suit. The idea was that the fusion suit was broken down so that all of all the organic parts of the suit were removed, so that Samus could, or the inorganic parts, I guess, all the outer portions of the suit were removed, so she had this more slim appearance. What we see in Dread seems to be the suit sort of regrowing itself and regaining its former composure. So, and it's interesting because Samus, at the end of Metroid Fusion, got what fans dubbed the Omega Fusion suit, which has the coloring of the Various suit. And that's kind of where you start off with this game. But very early on, of course, and this isn't a spoiler because this was all throughout the game, Samus gets her abilities removed, which is kind of a thing that happens in Metroid games. I like the ones that go out of their way to actually explain it. And it reverts back to that blue color scheme that we saw with the fusion suit, but with a little bit more bulk to it. So she's not as exposed as she was before, but I still think that she's fast and more lithe as a result of that.
Oh, dude, absolutely. And I will say this, Fusion and Dread both have the perfect explanations as to why she lost her abilities. You're not left to wonder, how did this happen? And they explain it very, very well, and it makes sense. And honestly, with what you learn in the game, getting your abilities back doesn't seem like how is this, why are these random abilities just kind of lying around? It makes sense as to how you're getting most of your stuff back. Because as we know, well, no. We're not spoiling things. I was about to dive into some spoilers. Just play. Oh, God. It's so hard not to start diving into the juicy stuff because, man, there's a ton of it. Oh, my gosh.
But, yeah, this game is 16 years in the making at least as far as the concept goes. As was stated before, it is the first 2D Metroid game, first new 2D Metroid game that wasn't a remake in 19 years. So certainly something spectacular. It truly deserves the designation as Metroid 5.
Yes, it does.
If we consider, the Prime as a sub-series, Other M doesn't count.
No, it does not. Oh, God. Although, they do pay homage to that in this game. They really do. With some of the things that you're able to do, some of the ways that some of the cutscenes work, some of the motions of some of the enemies kind of do a small callback to Other M, but the Other M is pretty much dead in the water at this point. And I think Nintendo realized their mistake with that game, and they worked really hard to try to erase that. Because, Samus Returns was awesome. It was really good, but it wasn't a new Metroid title. It was just a re-envisioned, completely reimagined version of Metroid 2, which is a great game, and that's actually the first time when Samus Returns came out, I actually beat it within the past year, and it's a phenomenal game. I enjoyed it, but it's kind of boring, because while it is a re-envisioned classic, the game itself is kind of repetitive, because really you're just on SR388 taking out Metroid after Metroid after Metroid after Metroid after Metroid after Metroid. And yes, the Metroids kind of grow in difficulty, but the fights are relatively the same. The only ones that aren't are the Omega Metroids and then the Queen Metroid. Everything else is just kind of repetitive. It's fun, don't get me wrong, but it was kind of stale as far as adding that to the series. And so when Metroid Dread was announced, fans were like, yes, finally something new, something absolutely exquisite. And this game, without diving into any details, is a true sequel to Fusion in every way. It is perfect. Yeah. It is perfectly done. It gets a 10 out of 10 from me, and I do not give games 10 out of 10.
It truly is a perfect Metroid game. So, and it's interesting too, because back around the time that Other M was released, Sakamoto was quoted saying that if they were going to eventually return to Dread, they'd end up starting from scratch. And I don't doubt it. This game, in a lot of ways, does feel like a logical extension of Samus Returns, which, of course, was a remake of Metroid 2, Return of Samus. So it makes sense that they would take that prototype and develop a whole new Metroid game from it. But it somehow is even more. I mean, in a lot of ways, it blends together Fusion and Samus Returns, I guess I would say.
I would say that it blends together Fusion, Samus Returns, and Zero Mission. Because in Zero Mission, Samus is relatively quick. And also the pacing of Zero Mission, this game felt a lot like Zero Mission's pacing. Because you get items relatively fast, back to back to back in Zero Mission. And I'm not saying that that's what happens in Dread. It's just the pacing feels like a woman that is nervous. It feels like she is dreading what's happening around her, and so she's trying to get through this as quickly as possible. And they constantly put you in that feeling of terror, and it's so wonderful, which makes it a perfect sequel to Fusion, because the SAX sequences were horrifying. Every single time you walked into a new area and you heard those footsteps, it's on. You're about to have to run for your life because you're no match for the SAX.
That is a game that exemplifies Dread quite a bit, too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that what took so long for Dread was maybe Nintendo thought that players wouldn't be interested in a 2D Metroid, and they were proven wrong whenever Samus Returns was met with critical acclaim. And because we understood that Metroid Prime 4 was in development, and we understood that Samus Returns was a remake of a previous game, it was something to kind of just tide us over. It wasn't as big of a disappointment that Nintendo wasn't working on a 3D Metroid. In fact, if anything, we live in an era now where people are sort of embracing this 2D style. I mean, Metroidvania is one of the most popular genres of indie games, and indie games have been extremely popular. So returning back to 2D has actually been a recent trend, and it also goes to show that these types of games don't take as long to create. While obviously a lot of effort and thought went into Dread, they announced it back in June and released it in October, which goes to show that the game probably didn't take too long to develop. I'd imagine that they worked off the same engine as Samus Returns, although I would say I think all the assets are brand new. And they look
absolutely
fantastic on the Switch. So, and understanding too, again, that this is a 2D game that we're going to be able to play for now, but we still are going to get Metroid Prime 4, later on, I think has everyone completely satisfied with that. And in any way, this game being 2D, I don't think takes away from the depth of it. The 2D side-scroller Metroids and the Metroid Prime games are just two different types of games, and I love them both for different reasons, and I hope we continue to get both.
Dude, you're absolutely right. And honestly, you and I talked about this a little bit, I think last week before Dread came out. I'm wondering if maybe Metroid Prime 4 will be a 3D first-person continuation of what's happening.
Yeah,
maybe not. Maybe it could be just a little bit after Prime 3. It might involve Silex a little bit, but part of me is hoping that, I think Sakamoto and Nintendo knew that Metroid Dread was going to turn out to be as good as it is. Because, I mean, if you're a company releasing a video game, you got to be confident in your product. And Nintendo, while they do take a long time to release their stuff, they release some bomb-ass video games. Metroid Other M not included. And so, I'm thinking that they developed Dread with Prime 4 in mind. And when I say that, I mean, why not keep fans loving this series by continuing that story with a first-person adventure? Because the Prime trilogy was incredible, but it didn't continue the story. It was a subplot, basically.
It was a subplot, and all centering around Metroid Prime. So I'd like to see if there's any way that Prime 4, even if it takes place later on, will still connect to that original story. Because I don't know if there's anywhere else they could go with it, but I'd be interested to see them try. And even if they didn't, I think it would be awesome. I know in particular a lot of developers have stated that Metroid Dread is the conclusion of the saga we have had so far with Samus and the Metroids. And
absolutely.
And you truly will see how that ends by the end of this game. Again, we'll get into that in part 2, but I'm really interested to see how Nintendo is going to go about the series from here on, and we kind of get a clue as to the direction. But if Metroid Prime 4 is going to be part of this new direction, I'm really excited to see it.
You know, you're absolutely right. I am right on board with you, man. Honestly, this game, for me, launches Metroid into the spotlight. With a game as pristine and wonderful as this, a smooth, fast-paced gameplay that's intense and difficult, this Metroid is not for the faint of heart, and it's not for lazy gamers. If you don't like games that are difficult, this is not the game for you. This game is tough. Even on the normal difficulty, it is hard. And this is coming from somebody that just beat the game 100% on hard. And that is really hard. Really hard.
I 100%ed it on normal, and I'm maybe halfway through the hard mode. I even started another playthrough that I got a little bit farther in, where I was attempting to just run through it as fast as possible. So kind of a minimal percent run, just picking up any items that are not out of my way to get, but still trying to get through it as quickly as possible so that I can get better rewards. Because of course that is a traditional thing with Metroid, is that either clear time or item percent completion or item completion percent can give you different endings. And Dread, of course, continues the trend of that. We'll go ahead and say that much. But yeah, I mean, Dread, I think, is just the most logical extrapolation of where Samus Returns, when, of course, we see the melee counter come back, and exactly the way that I wanted them to do it. They made the combat in this game rely a little bit less on it, so not every single enemy could be countered, because it did get a little bit stale when every single enemy was the same gimmick. In fact, that's exactly what the melee counter felt like in Samus Returns, was like a gimmick. In this, Dread has basically turned that mechanic into a staple, something that should be part of Samus's repertoire, because in addition to being able to melee counter, Samus can also dash melee, which actually does inflict damage, and it allows you to just, again, I think it contributes to the pacing of the game. Samus is fast and can just keep moving. Another thing that really helps is the slide mechanic, and you actually don't get the Metamorph Ball nearly as early in this game as you do in other games.
No, not at all.
So you actually get used to using the slide mechanic, which allows Samus to slide underneath obstacles. Not quite as far as she can in Morph Ball mode, but if you play the end of Other M, it works very similar to the Zero Suit Samus mechanic in that game. And
that is true, except it's well done.
It's well done, and actually, I really appreciate it. And again, I think it's something that needs to be in Metroid games in the future, along with the Flash Shift. That's also an awesome ability that completely changes the way you can go about combat and turns Samus into a literal beast, and she can move across the room real quickly.
Oh yeah, dude. To be honest, that's like one of my favorite abilities from the game, and the fact that this game also uses Aeon, like Samus Returns did, like you get the ability to use Aeon abilities, but the pacing with the Aeon rechargeability and not having to collect Aeon Orb, you don't have to collect Aeon Orbs in this game. I'm going to go ahead and let you know that right now. The Aeon is a lot more user-friendly and easier to manage, but still difficult in some spaces, like when you're trying to,
it's basically just a cooldown mechanic in this game.
Mm-hmm, but it's very quick. Quick movement charges your Aeon ability very fast.
Right. Including with the Phantom Cloak ability. And we can talk about that because I remember seeing that in the trailers and the gameplay demos. But the Phantom Cloak ability will allow Samus to camouflage herself, which works really well with the when you're going against the Emmy. And the Emmy robots are the kind of overarching antagonistic force in this game that really exemplify Dread for the majority of the game, because the Emmy are these robots that are completely invulnerable to your weaponry, and they will insta-kill you. You do get a small opportunity to counter one if it catches you, but it's very difficult to pull off and not something you can rely on.
Yes.
So really, most of the time what you're doing is you're trying to dodge the Emmy, get around them, and then eventually find the ability that will allow you to destroy them. And the Phantom Cloak ability allows you to bypass them, and so you can use that strategically when they're searching for you. However, once they've cut sight of you, it's not going to help you much.
Yep, that, and if you even so much as if you brush up against an enemy, they will get you. And like Ash said, you literally have a 1 in 100 chance of nailing that ability to escape. I won't go into detail on it, but you do have 2 opportunities per Emmy, encounter to get out. And if you miss the first one, chances are you're not going to get the second one.
It's hard.
It's very, very difficult. I will say, though, I got caught by an Emmy like 3 times in a row, and I managed to get out of it all 3 times.
You feel so satisfying, and then you can just slide underneath it, and it's so cool.
Yeah, the first time I was like, oh, I did it! And I didn't move because I was freaking out, and then he caught me again and killed me.
It's hard to pull off, but I managed to kind of figure out the timing of it, but it's not perfect. I mean, there are different environments where I think some of the enemies are faster than others, and also when you're in the water, that will affect it. Some of those segments are really difficult. When you don't have the gravity suit and you're moving through the water and an enemy's coming after you, it's faster than you. You're not going to outrun it, so you have to be smart and figure out ways to run away. The grapple beam in particular actually helped me with that. Speaking of the grapple beam, because it also works in tandem with the spider magnet ability, that was really cool, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think the spider magnet and the grapple beam ability both shine a light to Samus's ability to move throughout the game. And I'm telling you, this game really emphasizes Samus's ability to just get going, to move quickly. And the grapple beam and the spider magnet both play a hefty part in escaping the enemies, but you have to be precise and accurate, because I will say this Metroid game has the cleanest and smoothest control scheme of any Metroid game. Everything is placed perfectly to where once you learn how to play, it's basically muscle memory and you become Samus. This is the first Metroid game I've ever played where I've actually felt like I was Samus. And that's why I played it for 5 days straight, nonstop, twice, because it's such a good game. It's so smooth. It is literally perfect in almost every way. I'm sure some people are going to be like, well, that was 2D. Well, first of all, it's 2.5D with some of the most beautiful 3-dimensional cutscenes I have ever seen in a side-scrolling game. And Metroid game to date, the environments, the different places you'll go, it's all so well produced. And the cinematic cutscenes are just intense. You feel like you are there and that it is happening right in front of you. This game does a phenomenal job of pulling you in and becoming an immersive experience that we so desperately needed. And I feel like this game is going to put Metroid in the spotlight because it hasn't been Nintendo's most successful or most popular series. But with this addition to the series, people are going to start to say, oh, this is serious. This game series is phenomenal. And the more people that play Dread, and especially since it's not a very popular series in Japan, I think once they start getting a hold of it and starting to see what Sakamoto has produced, they're going to be like, oh, wow, this is tight. And so they're going to play Metroid Prime 4 and whatever the next 2D Metroid's going to be, because this is definitely not going to be the last 2D Metroid title. Not with the success of this game. No freaking way. There's no way they're going to stop there. They're going to keep making it better. And now that Sakamoto is completely in charge of these future projects, hopefully, I will say that, hopefully, because Dread was spectacular. It is spectacular.
But Other M was terrible, and Sakamoto was in charge of that, too, so...
Yes, but trial by fire, man. You win some, you lose some. And he won huge with this one, and so why not stick with this kind of formula? Stick with this kind of Samus that isn't scared of anything. She will literally stand head first while a giant dragon or giant creature is literally screaming in her face. Everyone saw it in the trailer. Everyone knows that Kraid is in the game. When you face off against Kraid, he is yelling and screaming at you, but she is just standing there looking up at him like, what you got for me? Let's go.
Soon be entering CTR's atmosphere.
The bounty for this mission does not seem appropriate.
Entering the atmosphere in T-minus 10. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
That elevator leads to the depths of an underground facility. Signal quality is likely to be low. Remote communication remains a problem. Try to connect to the facility's network when you reach the bottom. That way, click Remain in Contact. Many checkpoints waiting.
Samus returns to being a silent badass. And this game does feature voice acting, but, Samus in particular has been reduced quite a bit, and I think it should stay that way. I don't think, like Link, that she's a character that should never, ever, ever talk, but she's definitely a character that works better when she talks less. So you do get a little bit of text monologue in the game, and there is one part in the game where you hear some voice acting from Samus, and it's not quite what you would expect.
Not at all. It made me tear up, dude.
Yeah.
It made me almost cry. I was like, no way. Oh, dude, I had such an nerdgasm in that moment. It was spectacular. Oh. And then what happens immediately after, just, oh my God. Okay, but we're not going to talk about that because we're not doing spoilers right now. And so I think it's wonderful that they've returned to formula with Samus being the character that she is, the silent badass. And, dude... also, I love how in this game, they did it in Samus Returns when you're like facing a heavy enemy or a boss and you successfully land a counter, it goes into like a little interactive cutscene where you can continue like plowing missiles or beam shots into the enemy, but it's like this really cool cinematic part of the fight that it's different every time because also this game was designed for sequence breaking. It truly was. Because there's different ways to enjoy different fights if you've gotten different items at different times. And I think that truly pays homage to the brilliance of Sakamoto and, MercurySteam. MercurySteam is beautiful. MercurySteam did such a good job with this game. I don't want any other company making 2D Metroids ever. Ever.
Besides Nintendo.
Well, I mean, that's a given, but MercurySteam has to be doing this from now on. Like, MercurySteam, if they weren't a very popular video game company, damn it, they should be now, because my God.
They were in charge of Samus Returns too, I think.
No, oh yeah, they were, and they did a phenomenal job for the power that the 3DS had. But it's still, imagine Samus Returns on the Switch.
Yeah, I would like to see that game get ported to Switch, and just kind of get an HD upgrade and rework the controls a little bit so that they'll work on the Switch, which could totally be done. But yeah, so MercurySteam as the 2D Metroid developer and Retro Studios as the 3D developer, and we're golden.
Absolutely. Oh, dude, we are Krispy Kreme 2012.
And
We're
Nintendo overseeing in both cases, but it looks like Nintendo has been outsourcing a lot of the development with Metroid games, which makes sense. When they're more popular in the West, it makes more sense to have Western studios develop them.
Absolutely. I couldn't but agree with you more.
With Sakamoto overseeing the entire thing as sort of the Kevin Feige of the operation, or the Shigeru Miyamoto on that side.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And honestly, I think Shigeru Miyamoto is looking at this game like, well, I want in. I want a piece of this. Let me in on this. Because y'all just don't know. If you haven't played this game, just go play it. Go play the game. Do it. We want you to play the game. Please. Because, oh my God, dude, I'm about to cry. This game is spectacular. And I mean, you enjoyed it playing it on the Switch Lite, but man, I played it on my monitor here in my room. And I
bet it looked even better. Yeah.
Oh my God, dude. You just blah, 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 blah.
And this game looks good in handheld, though. Don't get me wrong. It is phenomenal. Like you said, these the cinematics in it are brilliant. I love how we do get a little bit of that 3D perspective in those cinematics, and so that allows you to kind of see the world from Samus's eyes a little bit. And even whenever you're doing, for instance, those counter chain sequences with most of the bosses in this game, and most every boss has or I think every boss actually, now that I think about it, has a sequence. That allows you to get a little bit more of that perspective. Some of the bosses in this game are super inventive and fun too. Like the one that you get the Phantom Cloak ability from. Again, that one was featured in a tech demo and trailers. His
name is Corpius.
Corpius, yeah. That boss actually you will face early on in the game, and it's one of the best fights. It's actually really cool. And some of those first sequences with the Emmys are just really terrifying.
They really are, because at the beginning of the game, you are completely helpless. All you have is a slide, a power beam, and that's it. And a counter, a melee counter. That is it. You don't even have you have one full energy tank. You have 15 missiles, a counter, a slide, and that's it, basically. Just a little weak power beam. And so you genuinely feel helpless. There's one point, well, no, this isn't really a spoiler. 'Cause there's one point where you're talking to the computer, because this is a sequel to Metroid Fusion, so you know that there's going to be interactions with Adam. That's just a given. It's going to happen. I mean, we see it a little bit in the trailer. So, I mean, we see her talking to the computer.
Right.
And so he literally tells you at one point, accept your helplessness. You are faced with a power far beyond your, imagining. Your only goal right now is to survive.
He even tells you that the main boss that you're going to fight in the game, who's a mysterious chosen warrior that we're not going to get into, but he even tells you that at full power you would have been helpless against this guy, which she was. That's why she's in the predicament she's in. And so Samus is completely stripped of her abilities, isolated. Unlike a lot of the more recent original Metroid games, this one does focus quite a bit more on that isolation. So it's a return to form in a lot of different ways. And even though you have Adam in the game, he isn't nearly as frequent. He only shows up at certain network stations throughout the game and doesn't tell you exactly where to go or what to do, unlike Fusion, but just giving you general guidance on what your objective is going to be. Early on in the game, he tells you your objective is to reach the surface. And that was something that was different in a lot of Metroid games, including the predecessors, Samus Returns, especially in that one, in Metroid 2. Samus is working her way down to the planet. In this version, Samus starts in the depths of ZDR and works her way up. And And so your general goal and your priority is making your way to the surface for actually the entire game. And that's pretty much the only direction that you're given. He tells Samus to trust her instincts. And so, you don't get a lot of direction on where to go.
Absolutely. There is very, very little in the realm of hand-holding with this game. It makes me laugh because when they, announced this game, they were like, yeah, this is going to be a Metroid title for all people. And I'm just like, that's a lie. This junk is hard, man.
It's hard.
I mean, if you're a good gamer, then you might get it, but you're not going to know the story. You're not going to understand why what's happening is happening. You're not going to understand why Samus looks the way she does. You're not going to understand anything except that, hey, move, shoot, boom, boom, jump. And live.
They give you a little rundown of what happened in Metroid Fusion and previous games, but yeah, this game is best enjoyed if you are a Metroid fan. But the developers have teased that it's a game that a newbie can start off with, and with the more fast-paced gameplay and more modern aspects of it, I think it will appeal to a gamer who has never played a Metroid game before, or maybe hasn't played all of them.
Yes, and with the extinction of the Metroids, you don't face a single Metroid in this game, and I actually love that, because yes, the game is called Metroid, but I mean, you gotta come up with new stuff. You gotta keep the series going. You gotta keep things fresh. You gotta keep things, original. And I really like the fact that there's no Ridley fight. There's no Metroids that you have to face, because that gets old after a while. You start to expect it, and you're like, well, okay, this is happening again. Now, if you waited like a few titles and then introduced them again in like a very, very unique or interesting way, then I would be down for that. But at the end of Fusion, Ridley is dead. Like the X-Parasite that mimicked him and you have to fight him, he is dead. You defeat them and then you absorb the Core X and you get the screw attack. That's it. He's done. He's done. He's gone. There's no more Ridley. He is gone. And so if they had found a way to put him in this game, I would have been kind of mad. I would have been like, why? What's the point? That would have been something that would have made me say this game is a 9.7. Because everything else is perfect. It's perfect. Like the item hunting, everybody knows that in a Metroid game that you gotta hunt for power-ups, like power bombs, missiles, all of that good stuff. It is beautiful. Like, it's really fun to look for different items, and obviously, they brought back Shine Spark puzzles, and so that they showed Shine Spark in the trailer. Everybody knew the speed booster was coming back, and so you knew they were going to implement some crazy Shine Spark puzzles. I had Ash trying to help me with a couple of them because they were just beating my brains in.
Yeah,
but
Shine
now
Spark
I'm really
puzzles,
good at them.
I want to say are very quintessential to Metroid, and I'm glad that they're back along with the speed booster. I like the way that the speed booster is incorporated into this game better. With the additional controls on the Switch, it no longer has to automatically kick in like it did in the 2D titles and Other M, but we actually have the ability to trigger it like we did in Super Metroid, and I appreciate that. That actually makes the game a lot better. And I also like that they did make the speed booster and Shine Spark mechanics just a little bit more accessible to players.
Absolutely.
The Shine Spark maneuver will kick in. The Shine Spark the speed booster kicks in a little bit sooner, and you get a little bit more time while you have a Shine Spark charged up.
Yeah, the worst speed booster kick-in time was Metroid Other M, because you literally had to watch her jetpack light up, and then it would eventually, kick in. And there was only like 2 decent Shine Spark puzzles in Metroid Other M. I did like using the speed booster in Other M. It took 3D. Doing speed booster in 3D was really cool. But I mean, the game was just so bad and so repetitive, and just made Samus look like a weakling. And it's just it shouldn't be canon at all. But
I 100% think they should decanonize it.
I mean, if they do, though, then that means that Adam should be alive. And
no, because
he shouldn't be in the computer.
In Fusion, Samus mentioned that Adam had already died. We just didn't know how he died. Other M attempts to tell that story, but in a lot of ways disgraces Adam quite a bit. I'd be happy if it was decanonized and we could just chalk it up to Adam died in her Federation days or something. I'd actually be 100% okay with that. We don't need to know the circumstances of why he died, or give us a small flashback sequence showing it.
Or they remake Metroid Other M. They completely reimagine it and make it the game it needed to be. Don't make Samus weak. Make the items accessible. Make the story make sense. Don't allow Samus to have to wait for authorization of items. Let us find the items instead of waiting for Adam's stupid little behind in a control booth to tell us, yep, use of super missiles is now authorized. Shoot the magma port and get the light in the room so that you can fight a great value mutated Ridley thing. It's just terrible. It's not... Okay.
As much as I'd like to see that get remade, I highly doubt it would happen, because other M is just so stigmatized that I don't think it's what I'm more banking on, and the route that I would take it is if they do a remake of Super Metroid, just throw in a little scene at the end where like Samus gets like 2 different mission objectives. She can either like she gets the bottle ship cry, but then she also gets like the hint towards the BSL on Metroid Fusion, and she goes, I'll go to the one on Metroid Fusion, and it just totally decanonizes Other M. She never went to the bottle ship.
And on her way there, and like on her way there, she gets a notification that Adam like passed away serving the Galactic Federation, and she like parks her ship on like an asteroid or like a lone planet, and she just mourns him. And then the events of Fusion take place. That would be really cool. It'd be sad, but it'd be really cool.
Yeah. So I don't see any reason why Other M needs to be canon anymore. I'd love to see a remake of it because it had potential, but in all honesty, I'd just like to see what they could do with a 3D like behind the shoulder camera style, because Other M was trying to be the 2D style of gameplay just in 3D. That was their attempt at doing that, and the format worked. It's just if we had a better control scheme, it would have been better. But in all honesty, the fact that we went that route and it didn't work out is why we got 2D Metroids again, and so I'm totally okay with it.
Yep, and to be honest, I would love it if MercurySteam would do a remake of Fusion, because it would be perfect. You know, it would give Fusion the look that it deserves. And honestly, dude, encounters with the Saiyx, if they added like cinematics and stuff, oh my god.
You could easily do a remake of Fusion in the style of Dread, and that's kind of what we were envisioning. Remember, we were saying that we would like to do a Metroid Fusion remake in the style of Samus Returns, but upgraded for Switch. That's what Dread is. So I would love to see Fusion done in the same style of Dread, and maybe bring in some of the abilities that Dread brings in, which would make sense canonically for Samus to have those abilities because it's right before. And then I'd love to see a 3D remake of Super Metroid. I'd love to see that.
That would be cool, but I seriously doubt that's going to happen, because Super Metroid is one of the greatest Metroid titles of all time to other people. I am not the biggest fan of Super Metroid. I don't like the clunkiness of the game, and maybe that's just because I wasn't old enough to enjoy it when I was younger, and I didn't get that, nostalgic experience. But I don't think that's going to happen. If they do remake it, they'll probably have MercurySteam do it in a 2D side-scroller format. I don't see why they would make a 3D remake of a 2D game. It would require too much overhaul and, too much work that could be put into a newer 2D, like an advancement in the story, or like the start of the new Metroid story. Because this story that we just concluded with Dread started back in 1986. And that's just my personal thoughts and opinion on it. I'm sure you would still love to see a 3D remake of Super Metroid, because it is a good game and it's got a great story. But, why do that when they can just create something so new and something better, something smoother, like continue what's going on after Dread. Like, and I'm sticking to my guns hoping that Metroid Prime 4 is a continuation of this story, but in 3D. That would be awesome. It's not a subplot, awesome, because we have so much story to piece together now, and with Dread concluding that story, I'm eager to learn what happens next. I don't want to keep reliving the past. I want to keep going, because I'm almost 25 years old, and while that doesn't really matter in this conversation, the older I get, the more new content I'm going to want to see before I finally, just hit the ground. I'm just kidding. That's very dark. but hey, I dread the fact that I dread the possibility of them going back. Yes, pun intended.
Well, that being said, we'll definitely have more to talk about in part 2. We're really going to get into the spoiler. We'll get into the story and some of the new items that Samus has used that we avoided diving into. but we could honestly talk about this for another hour, and we will in November. So stay tuned for part 2 of our episode on Metroid Dread. Before that, we are going to be talking about Outlast as our Halloween special. So we'll have a little bit of break, and that gives everyone, just kind of a whole month with Dread having been out before we really get into spoilers. And I'm excited about that. So,
absolutely.
Both of those. And there's so much more that's coming up in Collateral Gaming Season 4. So just everyone stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed this podcast, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or feedback on your platform of choice. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening to this on one podcast platform but you prefer another, chances are we're on that. We are also on social media. You can check us out on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you'd like to collab with us, if you'd like to see us talk about a certain game or do something, stay tuned for that. We're also jumping right back into bonus round this season. In fact, I think we will plan something Halloween themed for the bonus round this month. And we've still got a couple bonus round episodes that we have planned, and also Let's Play commentaries. I think at some point we're definitely going to have to do a Let's Play on Metroid
Oh
Dread.
my god, dude, absolutely. Man, we would be stupid not to. Dude, oh, yes. Yes, continue.
But yeah, anything else to add on your end, Zach?
No, man, anything else I have left to say would probably start diving into spoilers, and dude, after playing this game through twice, we're going to have plenty of stuff to talk about the next time we revisit this. So, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think you said this is a 10 out of 10 for you.
Absolutely, 10 out of 10, 100%. The music is... that's one thing we didn't touch on, dude. The music is spectacular. All original tracks with some hints to older stuff, but it's all fresh and new. And I love that because you guys know I'm a music fanatic. And so, yeah, all of the tracks are really, really awesome to listen to. They make the game a lot more enjoyable, more fun to get into. But other than that, yeah, that's pretty much all I could talk about. We will dive much deeper into this in November when we come back to it. But guys, if you have a chance, based on just what we've said today, if you can get a copy of Metroid Dread, I guarantee you will not regret it. It is a spectacular experience that I have done twice in the past 5 days like a crack addict. And I kid you not, you will enjoy every second of it. The pacing of this game is the best pacing in a video game I've ever experienced. There is not a single dull moment to the game.
This is going to be a 10 out of 10 for me as well. This game is literally perfect as a Metroid game, as a 2D Metroidvania style type of game. I mean, there is absolutely nothing that I was let down by. It not only met my expectations, it surpassed them. And that was hard to do because I had a lot of expectations for this game.
Oh, yeah, dude. When we saw this release, or when we saw it announced, we were screaming. We were nerding out, and then the game came out and just completely blew our minds.
Oh, it was the highlight of E3. Nintendo stole the show with just this and the peek at Breath of the Wild 2.
Oh, yeah, dude. Oh, man. Oh, dude. Oh, hoo-ha. All right, yeah, we need to stop before I start talking about Zelda.
But yeah, thanks for listening to this episode. Stay tuned for the rest of Collateral Gaming Season 4. Also, on Collateral Cinema, we recorded our season premiere on Necromantic. We've also recorded our episode on Scream, starring Stu from SWO Productions. And our Halloween special on Halloween Kills, and At the Movies episode, is up and coming. So, both Collateral Gaming and Collateral Cinema have a lot of content to dive into. We're really excited about it. Hopefully we can get Zach on board with some Collateral Cinema episodes and our other co-hosts as well. Or our other co-host.
Oh, that's a big bet, my dude. That's a big bet.
Yeah.
Also, I'm super pumped to talk about Outlast. That game is terrifying. And it's the game that made me come the closest to actually crapping my pants playing a video game. So I'm very excited to dive back into that. I actually have it downloaded on my PC. I'm going to start a playthrough of it sometime next week, and that way I'll be done by the time Halloween rolls around. So, yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be a good time.
Hell yeah, man. All right, well, that being said, I'm Ashley Chancellor.
And I'm Zachary Guillo.
This has been Collateral Gaming Season Premiere. Woo! And we are out.
Audi 5000.
See you later, everybody. Collateral Gaming is a Collateral Media podcast. All music and game clips are owned by their respective creators and are used for educational purposes only. Please don't sue us. We're poor.